Okay, so here we have Dungeon Saga, Dwarf King's Quest by Mantic Games. This is the retail set you see here, or some of it anyway. So here's the card stock that you get with the core game. And when you've taken all the time to paint your miniatures, obviously it makes a big difference, but you can play unpainted straight out of the box, which is quite good. But if you do paint your miniatures and you want to take your dungeon to the next level alongside with your miniatures, then that's what our product does for you. So I'll show you now the difference between the setup with the cardstock and the difference with our Deluxe Dungeon tile system. Okay, so here we have the Dark Ops Dungeon Saga Deluxe tile system. It enhances the look of your game. Obviously it's not something that is needed. You don't need to have this to play the game because everything you need is inside the box. But if you want to take your dungeon up to the same level as your miniatures, then this could be the purchase for you. So it's been painted with very simple techniques using rattle cans and dry brushing and washing and that kind of thing. And in this video I'll show you what you get in the pack, the assembly process, and some basic techniques to get your dungeon looking super cool. So stay with us. Okay, so here we have the Dark Ops Deluxe Dungeon tile system. It's officially licensed product, licensed from Mantic Games. It contains everything you need to upgrade your dungeon system in the retail pack of Dungeon Saga Dwarf King's Quest, from the cardboard stock to high quality 3.2mm MDF. So we'll take a look what's inside the packet, and there's 12 sprues for us to look at. Right, so we have, as I said, 12 sheets. Some of them contain individual tiles that pop out quite easily. They're very, very loosely connected so that you can customize how you want them on each of the base tiles. There are quite a few different designs, some of them quite intricate, some of them just basic squares. There are some that are broken so that you can mix it up a little bit. You get some little hasps. You also get channels where you can put goo and grime and ooze or water or lava or whatever your heart desires. There are grates and grills, so you can go mental with your rusting effects. Also some blanks, because you don't want too much pattern in there. Lots of cracks on them, and bits of chipping, and lots of space for you to put grit and grime. These kind of things here respond well to a bit of weathering. Some of them have got holes in. And then there are wood effects and tiles to represent the columns, the same as in the base set. Some of them build up to make steps to make the throne part. We'll see that in a second. You also, which is fallen off the sprue, is you get these range templates, so they can be weathered up quite nicely with some metal effects if you wish. The base tiles are also 3.2mm. So when you put those tiles on top of these, you get a nice thick durable tile system. This is all the same shapes, exactly same dimensions as the Mantic retail core set. We've also included the little token that you can split up for one of the scenarios. You can paint it up however you wish. Certain ones come together so that you know how they go on a certain tile, because the pattern does interlink there. So we tried to keep those together, as you can see there, so it's a lot easier to assemble. One of the large columns there for use in one of the scenarios, more of the base plates. The Dwarven Throne Room, which is the biggest piece. And then finally, just some generic shapes. It's all etched out so that when you're placing the tiles, it's quite simple. The tiles are slightly smaller than these squares, so you'll always get that nice groove in between them and give you a bit of shading. Okay, so let's go through an assembly process and then we'll look at some paint. Okay, so I've chosen the base plate that I want to decorate. I've got some PVA. It's better if it's thicker rather than too runny. If it is too runny, it's cheap PVA that you can get, then if you leave it out overnight in a pot like this one, it does thicken it up quite nicely. And all we're going to do is, I've already got a sort of an idea of the pattern that I want to do. So, just going to place them like so. Now, it is good if you dry fit as much of the whole kit as you can, and that way you'll always have enough of the same pattern tiles to do whichever pattern you choose. There are lots of tiles, more than enough to do the whole kit, but if you are after specific patterns for a certain tile, then you want to make sure that you've got enough to do that tile before you start sticking them on other pieces. And the idea behind the whole thing is that you can customize it yourself and make it your own, really. So we're not going to put too much PVA on. Doing it in small sections is always better. This is a sort of a grill. I'm going to put that one there, making sure it doesn't stick over the edges. The blank one there, and then we'll also have one of these. There we go. And it's better to not have them too uniform, so don't bother about trying to line them up, because it looks better if you have them a little bit more random. But the key thing is that they don't stick over, and you can push them around a little bit with PVA. You can use super glue if you wish, but it's a bit less forgiving, so we use a lot of the PVA. So I'm going to put the broken one there, so we can always put some grit in that part. Also, with the parts that have got grills on them, if you want to, you can pre-paint the part underneath, or do a sort of a lava or a green slime effect. Paint that first and then put a light coat of PVA on and stick your piece over the top, and you'll be able to see through it. But I have painted these this way before, where you just poke the paint down the holes and it looks fine. So it depends entirely up to yourselves. So the next one, go there, and we'll have a blank. I'm going to put that crack facing up to that hole there, as if there's been some kind of impact and it's sort of knocked the hole and shattered some of the tile. Some more PVA. Put one there. We'll have this one here. And then the final two. Got one with a little hasp on it. Oops, wrong way. Put that, because this one goes there. And there you go, just double check nothing's sticking over the top, so that they butt up nicely with other tiles if you wish to. Move a few around a little bit. And there you go. So once that's dried, give it plenty of time to dry. We'll do some primer and some basic dry brushing and washing effects. You could do metallics on those parts there, some lava effects or slime, bit of rusting, just to give it some colour. You can add greys to the tile, you can add dry brushes of green for mould, you can put flock in there if you want to, like a bit of moss. It's entirely up to you. So it's on to the next step. Okay, so when you've glued all your tiles individually onto the base plates, you will have something like this. And this is the Dwarf King's throne, which comes in multiple pieces that you just sandwich together. You can keep it so it just snaps in loose if you want to use it for flat storage, or you could glue it on if you wished. The column pieces you can glue on, or in this instance you can leave them off and just place them as during the game. So this one's ready for primering. This is another example where we've used the grills and grates and the drainage channel. And on this one we've left some gaps there to put in some grit and some grime, maybe a bit of moss, depending on how dirty and dank your dungeon exploring needs to be. So next thing, as we say, is painting up, and we'll go through that process now. Okay, so some examples after it's been primed. This has just been a rattle can, quick spray of cheap acrylic spray to give it a nice base coat, making sure we get into all the gaps. Here's another one. And those are the ones we're going to be doing grey. This one I primed white because it's a wood effect, and we're going to do some browns on there, and we'll paint this in manually with some black and do some metallics on it, some lava effects in the bottom. If you're going to go for this kind of finish, then obviously you can do it black and then go over it with a sort of a brown tan rattle can. Okay, so that's the primering. Let's look at some that have got some paint on them. Right, so this is one that's just had the next step, which is some grey primer outside. Obviously you need a lot of ventilation when you're doing this kind of thing. Spray it from a distance, just do a few passes, a few different angles like that, and you'll get various shading on top of the black. Because the black obviously is down in the grooves, it's pretty much done the work for you. The next part is just dry brushing with some lighter grey around the edges, just to pick out some of the highlights and some of the detail. You can add in some bits of grit. You could also do it in these parts. You can put some brown sort of mud paste in there, just to give it some extra definition. The metallics you can just do with dry brush of something like bolt gun metal and highlight with mithril, and then some, I think this was using some orange that have been watered down just to give it some rust effects. You can also use powders, it works also. This has got a bit of green added to it for a bit of moss effect and highlighted up, and the part where the green slime is for the drain is just browns and greens and then a gloss varnish. You can also use a water effect if you wanted to, or you could put lava in there. It's entirely up to you. This one has got a little bit of flock in it. Some more stones there. And you can see it brings them out quite nicely. So we're going from the assembled tiles with the blocks that are built up for the steps for the throne to something like this with the sandstone effect. So there we can see the difference between the assembled and the painted versions. Now these are only very basic paint jobs to show you how easy it is. Obviously if you've got talent, you can take it to the next level. but it looks good on the table, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the product. Thanks very much for watching.